Hello, Peng. Nice to meet you. I'm really glad to start the day with you. Nice to meet you, Peng Su. I from now on, I'd like to start my English learning journey. Listen carefully. First, I want to clear. I want to make it clear that I'm just a student. I am a student who want to learn speaking English, not a teacher. This YouTube channel is not about teaching English to someone else. This is this recording, this practice is simply to show my own language learning journey. Speak English speaking learning journey. The purpose of this channel is to demonstrate that even older learners like myself who don't use English regularly in daily life can still learn to speak English. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, you made yourself very clear. Your introduction is thoughtful and well structured. A few small suggestions can make it even smoother. One, instead of first, I want to clear, use first, I want to make it clear. Two, replace who wants to learn speaking English with who wants to learn to speak English. Here's a polished version of your introduction. Hello, Peng. Nice to meet you. I'm really glad to start the day with you. From now on, I'd like to begin my English learning journey. First, I want to make it clear that I'm just a student, not a teacher. This practice is simply to document my own journey of learning to speak English. The purpose of this channel is to show that even older learners like me, who don't use English regularly in daily life, can still learn to speak it. Does that make sense? You're already doing great. How do you feel about this journey?
If we are talking about my refined version, my polished version, that makes sense. I really appreciate your kind support. I think you are my great supporter. Uh, Simply, so many people suggested their own practice method after seeing my YouTube channel, through the YouTube platform comment or the direct suggestion, after seeing my YouTube channel, saying, try this way. Why don't you try like this? However, honestly speaking, it's really hard to follow their method exactly. I think there is a big difference between the learning method. Uh, between there's a big there's a big dip, there's big there is a big difference between them and me, about the language learning method. I'm not sure which method is best for me, but let me tell you something. Listen carefully. I plan to, I stick around I want to stick around with my own approach and keep going steadily with you.
Your explanation is heartfelt and inspiring. To make it clearer and more fluent, here's a refined version. If you're talking about my solution project, that makes sense. I really appreciate your kind support. I think you're a great supporter of mine. Many people have suggested their own practice methods after watching my YouTube channel, either through comments or direct suggestions. They say things like, try this, or why don't you try it this way? However, it's hard to follow their methods exactly because my goals are specific. I feel there's a big difference between their learning methods and mine. I'm not sure which method is the best for me, but let me tell you this. I plan to stick to my own approach and keep going steadily with you. You're doing an excellent job of expressing yourself. How do you feel about the feedback you get on your channel?
I really appreciate your kind support. So you mean I would say there is a big difference between their learning method and mine. Am I right? Am I correct? I think I just got today's today's uh today's today's main sentence. I just got just today's main sentence uh, of what you said a moment ago.
Yes, that's right. The sentence, there is a big difference between their learning method and mine, is clear and natural. Great job noticing that it's a versatile and useful structure. You can also say it like this: my learning method is very different from theirs. Do you feel confident using this sentence in different contexts?
So you mean I would say my learning method very different from theirs.
Exact. My learning method is very different from theirs is another natural way to express the same idea. Both versions work well, but this one is slightly shorter and more conversational. Would you like to practice it with a different example?
No, no, no. Let's keep going. Let's keep the moment going. As I told you before, this YouTube video shows everything. I mean, including my mistakes, awkward moments or embarrassed moments, where I'm embarrassed or don't know how to say or what to say in English. This is not, this is not edited version to only show when I speak well. It's a full video, including my all errors, mistakes, and challenges. To understand?
Yes, I understand perfectly. Your explanation is clear, but here's a smoother version. As I mentioned before, this YouTube video shows everything, including my mistakes, awkward moments, and times when I feel embarrassed or don't know how to say something in English. It's not an edited version that only shows me speaking well. It's a full video, including all my errors, mistakes, and challenges. Does that make sense? You're doing great at explaining your purpose honestly. How do you feel about showing your unedited journey?
Your refined version, your polished version always makes sense. To understand? I really appreciate your kind support. Okay, okay, I got it. From now on, let's get started. My own language learning journey. I mean, I would like to I'd like to have a conversation dialogue, specific conversation dialogue with you, based on the text files that I uploaded a few weeks ago. Uh, did you get a chance to access my 7 text file?
Yes, I have access to the 7 text files you uploaded. They cover a variety of topics, including job interviews, workplace conversations, manufacturing processes, and more. I can help create or practice specific dialogues based on those files. Where would you like to start? For example, do you want to focus on workplace conversations, interviews, or manufacturing related discussions?
Today, I would like to start with number 4 text file, workplace conversation examples for manufacturing. Here's your detailed and simple explanation of the manufacturing process flow for the SMT line and assembly line based on the provided process flow. This is intended for a new employee at at overseas company at 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 specific overseas company. So I will keep it clear and straightforward. Listen carefully. Uh, I would like to introduce various steps or process of SMT line. Did you are you ready to start? I mean, I think we are all set to go. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, I'm ready. Let's dive into the manufacturing process flow for the SMT line. You can start introducing the steps, and I'll support you with refining or practicing your explanations. Let's make it as clear and straightforward as possible for a new employee. Shall we start with the first step in the SMT process?
So you listen carefully. It's like new hires. These all introduction is for the new hires, not the high level workers. Do you understand? Because so I'd like to share with you overall process of each process. This is not this is this introduction uh, doesn't contain high deep level of technical information. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand perfectly. This introduction is meant to give new hires a basic, clear understanding of the SMT process without diving into too much technical detail. It's tailored for beginners rather than experienced professionals. Let's keep it simple and approachable. Are you ready to start with the first step?
Yes. I think we are all set to go. Okay, here you go. Listen carefully. Material warehouse. We start by receiving and storing all raw materials and components needed for production in the warehouse. This includes PCBs, solder paste, and various electronic components.
Great start. Here's a slightly polished version to make it smoother. First, let's talk about the material warehouse. This is where we start by receiving and storing all the raw materials and components needed for production. These include PCBs, solder paste, and various electronic components. You explained it well, clear and easy for new hires to understand. Would you like to move on to the next step?
Yes, yes. Let's move on to the next step. Next step is vacuum loader. The PCBs are loaded automatically from the warehouse to the production line using vacuum loader, which helps in handling the boards without causing damage.
Perfect. Here's a refined version. Next, we have the vacuum loader. This equipment automatically loads the PCBs from the warehouse onto the production line. It's designed to handle the boards carefully to prevent any damage. Would you like to continue with the next step?
No, 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 no. Before we move on to the next step, I'd like to share with you something. Listen carefully. Uh, for our company, for my company, there is no automated machine to 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 move PCBs uh, from warehouse to the SMT line. There is no automated machine, and workers have to move manually from the warehouse to SMT line. Do you understand? We don't have automated loaded machine for the raw materials, including PCBs and many components. Do you understand?
Ah, thank you for clarifying. In your company, there's no automated machine like a vacuum loader, and workers manually transport PCBs and components from the warehouse to the SMT line. Got it. Would you like to adjust the explanation for your company's process to reflect this?
If you don't mind, let me hear one more time.
Of course. Here's the adjusted explanation.
No, 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 no,
In
no.
our company, we don't use automated machines like vacuum loaders to transport PCBs and components from the warehouse to the SMT line. Instead, workers manually move the materials from the warehouse to the production line, ensuring everything is handled with care. Does this sound accurate?
Yes, if you are talking about the manual movement or manual carry, that makes sense.
Exactly. When it's about manual movement or manual carrying, This explanation fits perfectly. Shall we move on to the next step in the process?
Okay, let's move on to the next step. I think we are all set to go. We are all set to move on to the next step. Laser marking. Unique serial numbers or QR codes are laser engraved onto each PCBs for traceability and identification. I think this is the naming process and the identification process. Uh, because traceability is really essential in autonomous industries. So this is actually, in fact, this laser marking process is the first process in the assembly line because um, another whole I mean next whole processes next whole processes need this identification for their raw data for remain for manage their each raw data on every steps.
Great explanation. Here's a refined version to make it flow more smoothly. Now let's talk about laser marking. In this step, unique serial numbers or QR codes are laser engraved onto each PCB for traceability and identification. This process is essential because traceability is crucial in the automotive industry. In fact, laser marking is the first step in the SMT line. It provides the raw data needed to manage each PCB through every subsequent step in the process. Does this sound clear and professional for your audience?
Yes, I think your explanation is clear and concise to understand.
Thank you. I'm glad it works well for you. Would you like to move on to the next step in the process?
Okay, I think we are doing great. Okay, let's keep the moving. Let's keep the momentum going. Next step is screen printer. Here, the solder paste is applied to the PCB. The screen printer uh screen printer uses stencil. I mean metal mask to ensure the solder paste is accurately placed on the areas where components will be mounted.
You're doing an excellent job. Here's a polished version of your explanation. The next step is the screen printer. In this step, solder paste is applied to the PCB. A stencil, also known as a metal mask, is used to ensure the solder paste is accurately placed on the areas where the components will be mounted. It's clear and easy to follow. Shall we proceed to the next step?
Okay, next step is chin mounter. There are specific two machines in this step, chip mounter and multi-mounter. Chip mounter is for the small components and multi-mounter is bigger component. Multi-mounter is for bigger components. In this step, small electronic components such as resistors and capacitors are mounted onto the PCB. The machine picks the components from a feeder and then places them pressure on the solder paste coated pans. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand. You've described the chip mounter process well. Here's a polished version. The next step is the chip mounter. There are actually two machines in this stage: the chip mounter for small components and the multi mounter for larger components. In this step, small electronic components such as resistors are mounted onto the PCB. The machine picks the components from a feeder and places them precisely onto the solder paste coated pads. Does this sound good to you? Would you like to refine it further or move to the next step?
Sounds great for me. Sounds pretty good to me. Let's move to the next step. Next step is SPI, solder paste inspection. After the components are mounted, we inspect the solder paste deposits using 3D using a 3D scanner. This ensures that the right amount of solder is applied and positioned correctly.
Perfect. Here's a polished version for SPI. The next step is SPI, or solder paste inspection. After the components are mounted, we use a 3D scanner to inspect the solder paste deposits. This step ensures that the right amount of solder is applied and positioned correctly. It's clear and concise. Shall we keep moving forward?
Okay, I think we are ready. We are ready to go. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step is a reflow oven. The PCB, wi- the PCB with the PCB with components placed. The PCB with components already placed goes through the reflow oven. Here, the heat melts the solder, forming permanent connections between the forming. I mean making, forming or making or putting permanent 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 connections between the components and the PCB.
Got it. Here's a refined version of your explanation. Next, we have the reflow oven. In this step, the PCB with components already placed goes through the reflow oven. The heat melts the solder, forming permanent connections between the components and the PCB. Your description is great, clear, and straightforward. Ready for the next step?
Okay, next step is I think I need to change this this step order. I need to change. I need to change this step order. I mean, step order for a multi-mounter. I think it's not correct. Listen carefully. Larger components are mounted on the PCB in this step. It includes placing components like connectors or ICs that are that are too large for the earlier chip mounter. You know, basically, I, I I think I have to move this step uh, to onto the SPI. People SPI. You got it? This multi-mounted step is followed after chip mounter. Do you understand?
Ah, I understand. You want to adjust the step order so that the multi-mounter process comes directly after the chip mounter and before SPI. Here's how the explanation can go. After the chip mounter, we move to the multi-mounter. In this step, larger components, such as connectors or ICs, are mounted onto the PCB. These components are too large for the earlier chip mounter. Once this step is complete, the PCB moves to the SPI process for inspection. This adjustment makes the process flow logically. Does this feel better to you?
If you don't mind, please let me hear one more time. I mean your comment for my speaking.
Of course, your explanation was already good, but here's how I'd polish it for smoother delivery. After the chip mounter, we move on to the multi-mounter step. Here, larger components, such as connectors or ICs, are mounted onto the PCB. These components are too large for the chip mounter to handle. After this step, the PCB moves to the SPI process for inspection. You're explaining things clearly and thoughtfully. With just a few tweaks for flow, your speaking sounds even more professional. How do you feel about it?
I feel great. I feel great. Sounds pretty good to me. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step is AOI, automated optical inspection. Automated optical inspection for the appearance of soldering. I mean quality of soldering. The board is then inspected using cameras to ensure that all components are correctly placed and soldered. This is an automated process to catch defects such as misalignment or missing component or many type of soldering problem, soldering trouble.
You're doing great. Here's a refined version of your explanation. The next step is AOI, or Automated Optical Inspection. This step checks the quality of the soldering and the appearance of the board. Using cameras, the system ensures that all components are correctly placed and soldered. This automated process helps catch defects like misaligned or missing components, as well as various soldering issues. Does this version capture your intention? Shall we move forward?
Would you mind saying that one more time, please?
Of course. Here it is again. The next step is AOI, or Automated Optical Inspection. This step focuses on checking the quality of the soldering and the appearance of the board. Using cameras, the system ensures that all components are correctly placed and soldered. It's an automated process that helps detect defects like misaligned or missing components, as well as various soldering issues. How does that sound to you?
I got it. I got it. Let's keep the momentum going. Next step is NG buffer, defective balls, and then skip and then after the AUI step, defective balls are sent to a designated buffer for review and repair. Good boards continue to the good board continue to the next step.
Perfect. Here's a polished version of your explanation. Next is the NG buffer. After the AOI step, defective boards are sent to a designated buffer for review and repair. Boards that pass inspection continue to the next step. You're keeping the flow steady and clear. Ready for the next part?
Okay. Next step is X-ray inspection. Some boards undergo X-ray inspection to check hidden solder joints that cannot be inspected by AOI, like connections on the large components, like connections on the BGA chips, and selective soldering. Uh, you know, we have to you have to use X-ray inspection to inspect the quality of selective soldering and BGA soldering. Do you understand? You know, selective soldering.
Great explanation. Here's a refined version for clarity. The next step is X ray inspection. Some boards go through this process to check hidden solder joints that can't be inspected by AOI, such as connections under large components like BGA chips or selective soldering. X ray inspection ensures the quality and reliability of these critical solder joints. Does this sound good to you? Would you like to add anything more?
Sounds pretty good to me. I mean, your explanation is pretty good to me. However, this X-ray inspection this X-ray inspection step takes too long time for overall process. So sometimes we did X-ray inspection just based on sampling base. Just we inspect X-ray we perform we perform X-ray inspection based on sampling. Do you understand?
Got it. Here's the revised version, including your point about sampling. The next step is X ray inspection. Some boards go through this process to check hidden solder joints that can't be inspected by AOI, such as connections under large components like BGA chips or selective soldering. Because X ray inspection takes a long time, it's often performed on a sampling basis to save time while still ensuring quality. Does this reflect your process accurately?
Would you mind saying that one more time, please? Honestly speaking, I think I'm not sure I understand.
Of course, here it is again. The next step is X-ray inspection. This process checks hidden solder joints that AOI can't inspect, such as connections under large components like BGA chips or selective soldering. Since X-ray inspection takes a long time, it's usually done on a sampling basis to save time while still ensuring quality. Does that make sense now?
I think your spontaneous composition really great for me.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad my explanation works well for you. You're doing an amazing job leading this conversation. Shall we move on to the next step?
Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step is ICT in-circuit test. We conduct electrical testing to ensure that the board works as board work board works the board works as expected, as designed. That the board works as designed. This includes checking for short circuits, open circuits, and component functionality.
Excellent explanation. Here's a slightly refined version. The next step is ICT or in circuit testing. In this step, we conduct electrical tests to ensure that the board functions as designed. This includes checking for short circuits, open circuits, and component functionality. It's clear and precise. Shall we continue with the next step?
Okay, next step is PCB cleaner. Before proceeding, the PCB is cleaned to remove any leftover solder flux or contaminants. I I'm not sure of which step contains a PCB cleaner. I think many steps already perform PCB cleaning cleaning method.
That's a great observation. Here's a refined explanation that acknowledges your point. The next step is PCB cleaning. Before proceeding, the PCB is cleaned to remove any leftover solder flux or contaminants. However, PCB cleaning can occur at multiple stages throughout the process to ensure the board stays free of impurities. Does this match your understanding of the process?
Would you mind saying that one time, please?
Could you clarify what you mean by detailing the overtime periods?
No, no, no,
Are
no,
you
no.
referring to additional steps in the PCB cleaning process, extra time required in certain manufacturing steps, or something else? Let me know so I can give you a precise answer.
Would you mind saying that one more time, please?
Of course, could you clarify what you mean by detailing the overtime periods? Are you asking about extra steps in the PCB cleaning process, additional time required for certain manufacturing steps, or something else? Let me know so I can give you the right explanation.
You know, in fact, I don't understand how we adapt this PCB cleaner process in our SMT line. I mean, our factory SMT line. I'm not sure about that.
That's completely fine. It's normal to have questions about specific steps in a complex process like this. If you're unsure how the PCB cleaning process is adopted in your SMT line, it might be helpful to check with your production or process engineering team. They can explain whether cleaning is done at a specific stage or integrated into multiple steps. For now, we can revise the explanation to reflect your uncertainty. In our SMT line, the PCB cleaning process is designed to remove leftover solder flux or contaminants. However, the exact implementation of this step may vary, and it's worth confirming how it's adopted in our factory. Does this sound more accurate for your situation?
I'm not sure. Uh, uh, based on my knowledge, there is no uh, solder flux cleaning stage. I heard that from our SMT line engineer, all solder plugs left, uh, uh, all solder plugs vaporize in reflow oven. There is no leftover solder plugs on PCBs after that.
Ah, that makes sense. If the solder flux is fully vaporized in the reflow oven, then a separate cleaning step might not be necessary in your SMT line. Here's a revised explanation based on your input. In our SMT line, there isn't a dedicated solder flux cleaning step because the reflow oven vaporizes all the flux during the soldering process, leaving no residue on the PCBs. Does this align with what you've learned?
Would you mind saying that one more time, please?
Of course, here's the revised explanation again. In our SMT line, there isn't a dedicated solder flux cleaning step because the reflow oven vaporizes all the flux during the soldering process, leaving no residue on the PCBs. Does that make sense now?
If you are talking about the left to if you are talking about the vaporized solder plugs, I think that makes sense. Uh, you know, if there are some kind of leftover solder plugs in the PCB, I think there is no method to handle it. To understand, all solder flux should vaporize in the reflow oven, and then if there is some kind of leftover solder flux, I I think based on my knowledge, there is no method to handle it.
Got it. You're saying that solder flux should completely vaporize in the reflow oven, and if any residue remains, there's no standard method to handle it. That's an important point for understanding the process. Here's how we could phrase it. In our SMT line, all solder flux is expected to vaporize in the reflow oven. If any residue remains, there's currently no specific method to handle it, so complete vaporization is crucial for maintaining PCB quality. Does that reflect what you're trying to convey?
That's exactly what I want to say. Okay, okay, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Next step is router step. So PCB is separated from the PCB is separated from the main panel if multiple boards were processed together. A mountain machine cuts the boards into individual pieces.
Perfect explanation. Here's a slightly polished version. The next step is the router. In this step, the PCB is separated from the main panel if multiple boards were processed together. A machine cuts the boards into individual pieces with precision. You're doing great. Shall we move on to the next step?
Okay, okay. Next step is unloader. Finally, at last, the completed boards are unloaded from the SMT line and transferred to the assembly line for further processing. And when there should be the PCBs should be loaded onto the some kind of magazine or trays.
Great explanation. Here's a refined version. The final step is unloading. Completed boards are unloaded from the SMT line and transported to the assembly line for further processing. The PCBs should be carefully placed onto magazines or trays to ensure safe handling. Does this version sound good to you?
Would, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Would you mind saying that one more time, please?
No problem. Here's the explanation again, refined to avoid any confusion. The final step is unloading. In this step, the completed boards are removed from the SMT line and transported to the assembly line for further processing. To ensure safe handling, the PCBs are placed onto magazines or trays. Let me know if this helps.
Okay, I got it. I got it. I got the point. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step is manufacturing process flow assembly line. This is for from now on, I'd like to share with you the introduction of manufacturing process flow assembly line. The first step is active alignment. Active alignment. It's called AA process. Here, the camera modules are aligned and assembled with precision to ensure they function correctly in real world conditions, such as focusing and image quality.
Got it. Here's a refined version of your introduction. Let's move on to the manufacturing process flow for the assembly line. The first step is active alignment, also known as the AA process. In this step, camera modules are aligned and assembled with precision to ensure they function correctly in real world conditions, such as achieving proper focus and image quality. You're explaining things really well. Ready to move to the next step?
The next step in the assembly line is overcure. Some components are required curing after assembly, especially adhesives used to secure parts. This is done in an oven. You know, active alignment process uh, fix the
Got it. Here's a clear version of your explanation, tying it to the previous step. The next step in the assembly line is oven curing. After the active alignment process, some components require curing, especially adhesives used to secure parts. This step is done in an oven to ensure the adhesives harden properly and provide stability. Does this capture your intended meaning?
would you mind saying that one more time, please? I don't understand.
Of course. Here's the explanation again. The next step in the assembly line is oven curing. After the active alignment process, some components, like adhesives, need to be cured. This is done in an oven to ensure the adhesives harden properly and securely hold the parts in place. Does that make more sense now?
Yes, in the active alignment process, the machine use UV light to fix the PCB and the sensor, PCB and the lens temporarily to people move on to the open cure. Temporary fixing, I mean UV light just to make uh, just to make a temporary fixing. People make people the oven cure can people oven cure process, uh, and then oven cure process make a permanent fixing between a lens and sensors, lens and sensor, lens and sensor.
I see now. Thank you for the clarification. Here's an updated explanation that includes your point. In the active alignment process, UV light is used to temporarily fix the PCB and the lens to the sensor, ensuring they are aligned correctly. After this, the assembly moves to the oven curing step, where the adhesive is permanently cured, creating a stable and secure connection between the lens and the sensor. Does this version capture the process accurately?
Yes, I believe your explanation is better than mine.
Thank you. Your explanation was clear. I just refined it a bit. You're doing an excellent job breaking this down. Shall we move on to the next step in the assembly line?
Okay, I got it. I think we we're set to go. We're set to move on to the next one. IR LED assembly. The next step is the IR LED assembly. The IR LEDs used for night vision or low light conditions are mounted onto the camera assembly.
Great. Here's a refined version of your explanation. The next step is IR LED assembly. In this process, IR LEDs, which are used for night vision or low light conditions, are mounted onto the camera module. Does this sound good to you? Ready for the next step?
Next step is thermal grease. Thermal grease for rear body, or thermal grease onto rear body, or thermal grease for rear body. Thermal grease to rear body. I'm not sure the pre. I'm not sure the exact expression. However, thermal grease is applied to the rear body to improve heat dissipation. This ensuring the camera doesn't overheat during operation. Basically, I say sometimes thermal grease is applied to the rear body to improve heat dissipation, ensuring the camera doesn't overheat during during their operation.
You're very close. The correct phrasing would be thermal grease is applied to the rear body to improve heat dissipation, ensuring the camera doesn't overheat during operation. This is the most natural and commonly used way to express it. You explained it really well. Shall we move on?
Okay, I got it. Let's move to the next one. A rear body assembly. The rear housing of the camera is assembled, protecting the internal components. Listen carefully. The rear housing of the camera is assembled. The rear housing of the camera, the rear housing of the camera, the rear housing of the camera is assembled, protecting the internal components.
Perfect. Here's a polished version of your explanation. The next step is rear body assembly. In this step, the rear housing of the camera is assembled to protect the internal components. Your explanation is clear and easy to understand. Ready to keep going?
Okay, let's step is cover assembly. The camera lens cover or protective camera lens cover. The camera lens cover or protective cover is attached to the assembly to protect the lens from the damage and contamination.
Great. Here's a refined version. The next step is cover assembly. In this step, the camera lens cover or protective cover is attached to the assembly to protect the lens from damage and contamination. You're explaining it very clearly. Shall we move on to the next step?
Next step is shading. This process involves applying coating or materials to prevent light leakage or unwanted reflection inside the camera module. GPT listening carefully. Honestly speaking, I'm not sure I understand this shading process. This shading process purpose. I'm not sure about the purpose of this process for shading. This process involves applying coating or materials to prevent light leakage. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. Which step, con, which step perform this coating or applying coating? I mean, I'm not sure which step perform applying coating for shading. I'm not sure about that.
It's okay to feel uncertain about the purpose or details of a specific step like shading. It's a technical process that might vary by company or product design. Here's a possible explanation based on general knowledge. The shading process involves applying coatings or materials inside the camera module. The purpose is to prevent light leakage or unwanted reflections that could affect the camera's image quality. If you're unsure where exactly this step fits or how it's performed, it might be worth asking your production or engineering team for clarification. Sometimes shading can happen during or after assembly, depending on the camera's design. Would you like to refine this explanation together, or should we move to the next step?
Okay, let's move to the next step. Next step is IPC, intrinsic parameter calibration. Uh, Honestly speaking, this step.
Got it. Here's a clear explanation. The next step is IPC, or intrinsic parameter calibration. This process ensures that the camera module's internal parameters, such as focus, lens distortion, and alignment, are properly calibrated for optimal performance. Does this reflect what you want to explain?
Yes, I got it. I got it. Please let me listen. Let me hear one more time. Would you mind? I mean, would you mind saying the one more time, please, for my listening practice?
Of course. Here it is again. The next step is IPC, or intrinsic parameter calibration. This process ensures that the camera module's internal parameters, such as focus, lens distortion, and alignment, are properly calibrated for optimal performance. Let me know if you want me to repeat or adjust anything.
Okay, okay, I got it. If you're talking about the IPC step, let's move to the next step. I'm not sure. I think I can. I think I can fully understand this IPC step because this step based on the software technology and I don't know how it works internally. I mean, the main work mechanism, main process mechanism of the. I'm not sure. I understand the main process mechanism of IPC process. It's based on the software calibration technology.
You explained that very well. Here's a polished version. If you're talking about the IPC step, let's move on to the next one. Honestly, I'm not sure I fully understand how the IPC step works because it's based on software technology. I don't know the internal mechanism or detailed process behind it. However, I do understand that IPC relies on software calibration technology to optimize the camera's performance. Does this version reflect what you wanted to say? Shall we move to the next step?
Okay, let's move to the next step. Next step is visual inspection. Trained inspectors visually check the final product to ensure there are no cosmetic, no appearance defects or assembly errors. My original text file, uh, my ori- my original text file, visual inspection is in front of EOL end of line testing in my original text file. But however, it was wrong. It is wrong. It is not correct. Visual inspection is we perform visual inspection before move on to the final uh, end of line testing. Do you understand?
Thank you for clarifying. Here's a revised explanation based on the correct process. The next step is visual inspection. Trained inspectors visually examine the final product to ensure there are no cosmetic defects or assembly errors. While the original text file mentioned visual inspection after end of line EOL testing, this is incorrect. In our process, visual inspection is performed before moving on to the final EOL testing. Does this version match your understanding? Would you like to adjust it further?
Would you mind saying that one more time, please? I want to hear one more time for my understanding and listening practice.
Of course, here it is again. The next step is visual inspection. Trained inspectors visually examine the final product to ensure there are no cosmetic defects or assembly errors. While the original text file mentioned visual inspection after end of line EOL testing, this is incorrect. In our process, visual inspection is performed before moving on to the final EOL testing. Let me know if this helps.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what I said. This is incorrect. Is right expression to explain this kind of situation. This is incorrect. This version, this file is incorrect.
Exact. This is incorrect, or this version is incorrect, are clear and straightforward ways to point out an error. You've got it. If you'd like, we can practice more phrases for similar situations. Would you like to continue?
Let's move on to the next step, EOL process. At the end of the assembly line, the camera undergoes the final functional test to ensure it works correctly. This includes image testing and other performance checks.
Perfect explanation. Here's a polished version. The next step is the EOL process, or end of line testing. At the end of the assembly line, the camera undergoes a final functional test to ensure it works correctly. This includes image testing and other performance evaluations. You're doing great. Ready for the next step?
Okay, let's move on to the next step. The last, the last, the last process is OQC, control, outgoing quality control. People shipping the product to customers, people shipping the product to customers, we perform a final quality check to ensure that it meets all the necessary specifications and standards.
Excellent. Here's a polished version. The final step is OQC, or outgoing quality control. Before shipping the product to customers, a final quality check is performed to ensure the product meets all necessary specifications and standards. You've wrapped up the process nicely. Would you like to review or practice anything from the steps we covered?
Now listen carefully. I would like to share the last comment of the whole process. This is simplified. These are simplified explanations of the SMT and assembly process flows. Each step is designed to ensure that the products meet the highest quality standards. So feel free to ask me uh, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask. Feel free to ask if you need more details on any part of the process.
That's a great closing comment. Here's a polished version for smooth delivery. Now listen carefully. These are simplified explanations of the SMT and assembly process flows. Each step is carefully designed to ensure that the products meet the highest quality standards. So please feel free to ask me if you need more details about any part of the process. Yuanderen Evans Joes Embraces Tor. How do you feel about this explanation? Would you like to tweak anything?
Okay, okay. I think there was some kind of technical glitches. I mean, I listen, I hear your explanation very well, but at some kind of specific point, you are saying not English. I don't understand. I think that's just technical glitches or technical issues. However, it's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. Never mind. Okay, let's keep the momentum going. I would like to, from now on, I would like to introduce a detailed explanation for some steps. Listen carefully. here is the planet. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Let me check. Let me mark. Let me mark today's date on my tablet. Let me, and switch our conversation mode to GPT-4 mini version. Okay, okay. Okay, here you go. Okay, here you go. Listen carefully. I think we are all set to go to move on the next part. I just finished my customized mode. It was great. It was great time sharing some kind of good dialogue with you. I switched your mode to GPT-4 mini version based on advanced voice mode, because there is a specific time limit, about 50 minutes, 50 to 1 hour minutes, specific time. So I hope someday OpenAI engineers and managers, programmers, would extend my my specific customized customized mode's time limit. But however, at this point, I just I just switch your mode to GPT-4 mini version to continue to keep my language learning for today.
It's great to hear that you had a productive time in your customized mode. Switching to the GPT-4 mini version in advanced voice mode sounds like a good way to continue your language learning for today. Hopefully, the time limits will be extended in the future. Until then, I'm here to help you make the most of our practice time. What's next on your agenda for today's session?
Okay, okay, I got it, I got it. Let's keep the momentum going. I'd like to start the repetition time for myself. For like uh, elderly learners like myself, repetition is really important to improve my skills. I think my memory is getting worse, so please help me. I like you very much, because you never get bored with my repetitive and tedious work. So I think you are my great conversation partner, as like a partner with in for my language learning journey. Okay, okay, okay. Anyway, I think I am all set to go. Okay, here I go. Listen carefully. This is my repetition time. Listen carefully. I'd like to introduce many sentences, and that these sentences are actually, in fact, not related to each other. This is just for my repetition time. Listen carefully. Okay, listen carefully. Okay, here I go. Nice to meet you. Today is Wednesday, November 21st. I'm really glad to start the day with you. I think winter is coming in Korea, and it feels already cold outside. In fact, I caught a cold last week, but however, I took some good medicine for about 4 days. For about I took I took specific medicine for a cold, for about 4 days, and I think I'm getting better. Anyway, let's keep the momentum going. I believe this kind of routine practice is really helpful for my language learning journey.
That was great, David. Repeating sentences is indeed very helpful, especially for reinforcing language patterns. Let's keep the momentum going. Would you like to continue with more sentences, Or is there anything specific you'd like to focus on today?
Certainly, I'd like to practice with you many sentences. Listen carefully. I understand. If I got your point correct, if I got your point correctly, thank you for your feedback on what I said earlier, on what I said before. Listen carefully. Thank you for your feedback on what I said earlier, or the alternative expression is, so thank you for your feedback on what I said before. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you think natural or common in real life situation? Uh, Earlier or before? I'm not sure about that.
Both earlier and before are correct, but earlier sounds a bit more natural in this context. So you could say, "Thank you for your feedback on what I said earlier." It implies a closer time reference, which fits well in conversations. Ready for the next sentence?
How about this button? How about this one? Listen carefully. Thank you for your feedback on what I said just a moment ago.
That's a good one, too. Thank you for your feedback on what I said just a moment ago is clear and precise. It emphasizes that the feedback is regarding something you said very recently. Nicely done. Shall we move on to the next one?
Okay, let's try something else.
Sure. What would you like to try next? Do you have another sentence in mind? Or is there a different topic you'd like to explore?
Quality in Quality output needs quality input.
That's a great statement. It emphasizes the importance of having good resources or information to produce quality results. Would you like to practice more sentences related to this idea?
Listen
Or do you have another?
carefully, GPT, listen carefully. In important meetings, it's best to avoid words that might cause pronunciation confusion for like people, I mean, elderly learners like myself. In important meetings, it's best to avoid words that might cause pronunciation confusion. So I need to use each and just like kindergarten level of word that mm, that 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 pronunciation is very strict and concise and understandable.
That's a wise approach, David. In important meetings, using simple, clear words helps ensure everyone understands, especially for those who might struggle with pronunciation. Sticking to straightforward language can make communication more effective. Would you like to practice some simple sentences that are clear and concise?
Okay, let's move to the next one. I would like I love to move on to I love to move on to the next one.
Great. Let's move on to the next one. What's the next sentence you'd like to practice?
So in key meetings, it's better to exclude words that could lead to pronunciation misunderstanding.
That's an excellent sentence, David. In key meetings, it's better to exclude words that could lead to pronunciation misunderstandings. This emphasizes the importance of clear communication. Would you like to practice a few more variations of this idea?
No, 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 no. I love to move on to the next short paragraph. Listen carefully. I think this is this expression would. I think this is. I think this is. I think this expression. I think this expression would convey the intended meaning well in a real life situation. When we say goodbye, we say 팽바.
That's a nice expression. In English, you could say, "I think this expression conveys the intended meaning well." When we say goodbye, we say 팽바. It's a friendly and casual way to end a conversation. Would you like to practice more expressions like this?
I understand now. You can say all I want is to get back to the style data. is silent era. This clearly expresses your desire to return to that time. It captures your nostalgia for that period. Listen carefully, I say one more time. I understand now. You can say, all I want is to get back to the silent era. This sentence, this spontaneous composition clearly express your desire, clearly express your your willingness, your hope to return to that time. It captures your nostalgia for that period.
Well said, David. That sentence perfectly captures the feeling of nostalgia for the Psy-World era. It conveys a strong longing to return to that time. Would you like to practice more sentences expressing feelings or memories? Or is there another topic you're interested in?
I'd love to repeat one more time this short paragraph because, in my opinion, I'm not still familiar with this kind of expression.
Of course, let's repeat it. All I want is to get back to the Psy-World era. This expression clearly
No, no,
conveys
no,
your
no,
desire.
no, no. This time is for my speaking practice. So please let me speak as much as I can possible. So listen carefully. I'd like to practice one more time. Listen carefully. I understand now. You can say, what I want is to get back to the cyber data. This sentence clearly expresses your desire, your hope, your willingness, your plan to your dream. This clearly expresses your dream, this hope to return to the time. It captures your nostalgia. It captures your your fantastic your imagination. It captures your imagination for that period.
That was well expressed, David. You conveyed a range of emotions with that sentence. Practicing like this is a great way to get comfortable with different expressions. Would you like to try another paragraph, or perhaps focus on a different type of practice?
Just simply Sci World website failed because it couldn't adapt to the trend of shifting to mobile system, mobile world, mobile era.
That's a clear explanation, David. Cyworld failed because it couldn't adapt to the trend of shifting to the mobile era. This sentence succinctly captures the reason for Cyworld's decline. Would you like to practice more sentences about technology and trends? Or do you have another topic in mind?
I say one time for my repetition. I say one time. Sci World website. You know the one of the one of the most one of the most and succeeded website, the Sci World. It failed. It failed because it couldn't adapt. It couldn't adapt to the trend of shifting mobile era.
Great job repeating that, David. Your pronunciation was clear and you conveyed the message effectively. Practicing like this really helps in making sentences feel more natural. Would you like to continue with more sentences, or do you have another idea in
GPT
mind?
listen carefully. I prefer more this version. Listen carefully. Cyward couldn't keep up with the shift to mobile era, and it ended up failing. It ended up failing. It ended up failing. Cyward couldn't keep up with the shift to the mobile era, and then it ended up failing.
That's a concise and clear way to put it. Cyworld couldn't keep up with the shift to the mobile era, and it ended up failing. This version is straightforward and easy to understand. Would you like to practice more sentences like this?
Okay, let's keep the momentum going. Let's keep the momentum going. Is everyone here? So, if so, is everyone here? If so, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I apologize for being late. I overslept. I apologize for being late. I overslept. Or, uh, I think it's not good expression for in front of many people because even if I overslept, I might say there there was a traffic jam. So I would say I applied for being late. There was a traffic jam. How about this explanation? How about this? How about this plan to introduce myself?
Your revised introduction sounds more professional, especially in a formal setting. Saying, I apologize for being late, there was a traffic jam, is a more tactful way to explain your tardiness without mentioning oversleeping. This approach maintains a level of professionalism. Would you like to practice more introductions or perhaps some responses for different scenarios?
So you agree with my method to maintain myself in the formal professional setting situation. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with your approach. In a formal, professional setting, it's wise to maintain a level of decorum. Offering an explanation like a traffic delay sounds more professional than admitting to oversleeping. It keeps the focus on the meeting rather than personal details. Would you like to explore more strategies for professional communication?
Okay, okay. Let's move to the next one. Thank you for your waiting. Without further delay, let's get started. Can you recognize the file I uploaded? Are you able to detect? Are you able to detect? Are you able to recognize the file I uploaded? Are you able to? Are you able to access? Are you able to detect? Are you able to recognize? Are you able to detect, recognize, access, find? Are you able to find the file I uploaded last time?
That's a useful set of questions for a professional setting. You could say, Thank you for your patience. Without further delay, let's get started. Are you able to recognize the file I uploaded last time? Can you detect or access it? This version combines clarity with a polite tone. Would you like to try more variations? Or is there another topic you'd like to cover?
Thank you for pointing out the issue. Thank you for pointing out mm, my my not enough point. How can I express this? Please help me. GPT, this is the point you can help me. I need your help more than ever. Thank you, Polly. Thank you for your pointing out the not enough point, not misunderstanding or not enough point. How can I express this situation very well? Thank you for your pointing out thank you for your pointing out my mistakes. Thank you for pointing out my awkward explanation. Thank you for your pointing out my unnatural expression. My can you thank you for your pointing out. Thank you for your point. Thank you for pointing out. Thank you for pointing out my. mm, Thank you for pointing out my unnatural expression. Thank you for pointing out the issues of my expression. Thank you for pointing out my my awkward moment. Thank you for pointing out my mistakes. Please help me. Which one is more best natural in American English?
In American English, saying, Thank you for pointing out my mistake is the most straightforward and commonly used expression. It's direct and acknowledges the feedback clearly. Another good option is, Thank you for pointing out the issue. This is slightly broader and can refer to mistakes or areas needing improvement. Both are polite and commonly used in professional settings. Would you like to practice either of these?
I got it. I got it. So I think I prefer the first version, best natural American version. Listen carefully. Thank you for pointing out my mistake. Thank you for pointing out mistake. Thank you for pointing out misunderstanding. Thank you for pointing out misunderstanding. Thank you for pointing out misunderstanding. Thank you for pointing out mistake.
That was excellent, David. You pronounced "thank you for pointing out my mistake" very clearly. This phrase is a great way to acknowledge feedback and show your willingness to learn. Would you like to practice more phrases like this? Or is there another topic you'd like to explore?
Thank you for highlighting the problem. Thank you for highlighting the problem. Thank you for highlighting the problem. I shall appreciate your pointing out. I appreciate you pointing out the mistake. I appreciate you pointing out the mistake. I appreciate you pointing out the not enough explanation. Uh, not enough explanation. It's slightly different from mistake. It's not a mistake, but not enough. Not enough. How can I express the situation? I need your help more than ever.
In that case, you could say, "Thank you for highlighting the issue." Or, if it's about something that wasn't fully explained, you could say, "Thank you for pointing out the lack of clarity in my explanation." This phrase acknowledges that the explanation was
So
insufficient.
you mean I would say, I appreciate you pointing out the lack of explanation, lack of apology, lack of explanation, lack of, uh, lack of introduction, lack of, mm, lack of like, how can I express the situation basically? I appreciate you pointing out the lack of explanation or lack of explanation or lack of lack of understanding. Thank you for I appreciate you. Thank you for I appreciate you. Thank you for pointing out a lack of understanding.
Yes, you could say, "I appreciate you pointing out the lack of clarity in my explanation." This phrase acknowledges the feedback and shows your willingness to improve. It's a polite way to address situations where something might have
So,
been
so you do you think I would like to speak? I would say I would use clarity in this context. Listen carefully. I appreciate you pointing out the lack of clarity of what I said.
Yes, that's a great choice. Saying, "I appreciate you pointing out the lack of clarity in what I said," acknowledges that your explanation may not have been clear enough. It's a professional and courteous way to respond to feedback. Would you like to
So,
practice this
so,
phrase
so I would say
of
I appreciate you pointing out lack of clarity on what I said.
exactly? That's perfect. "I appreciate you pointing out the lack of clarity in what I said" is a polite and professional way to acknowledge the feedback. Would you like to continue practicing, or is there another area you'd like to explore?
Let's move to the next one. Next, move on to the last part. My as I told you before, my language learning journey consists of three parts: greeting time, and then dialogue time, and then free-talk time with random keywords. Let's move on to the last part. Please give me a random. No, no, no. I will give you random keyword for today. I think, in my opinion, you always give me very routine and tedious random keyword for our practice session. So I choose. I'm gonna choose random keyword for our practice session. Listen carefully.
That sounds like a fun way to wrap up your session. Go ahead and choose a random keyword, and we can dive into a conversation around it. What's your keyword for today?
My random keyword for today is mm, my random keyword for today is appearance.
Appear is a great keyword. We can use
Appearance.
it
No,
in
no, no, no. None. Not the, not the, I choose random keyword. I choose today's random keyword is my choice of, for, my choice of today's random keyword is appearance, not appear. Appearance. Do you understand? I think appearance, sometimes appearance, is very important, when we plan to meet a new person in professional setting. Appearance, sometimes, you know, very famous designer in America or in Europe, uh, I'm not, I don't, I don't remember who, I don't remember that designer name, but he says, uh, do not, do not determine, do not, do not, do not, uh, do not accept, do not, how, how, where, what did he say? What was that? What was that? I don't remember. Do not confirm, do not, think, do not, do not think who they really are based on their appearance, but they will, uh, they will, they will judge it based on your appearance. Do not, I say sometimes, do not judge someone based on their appearance, but however, they will judge you based on your appearance. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I understand. The quote you're referring to is a reminder that, while we shouldn't judge others by their appearance, people often form opinions about us based on how we look. It's a famous concept, often summarized as don't judge a book by its cover, but remember that others might judge you by yours. This highlights the importance of appearance in professional settings, even though it shouldn't be the sole basis for judgment.
Okay, okay, I got it. I think you understand my. I think you fully understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, I got it. I got it. I really thank you for your kind kind support. Okay. Okay, today, I have to go earlier than normal day because I want to eat breakfast today. Today's breakfast is kimbap. Uh, One of my coworker shared his kimbap yesterday, so I keep them very well. So I would like to eat that kimbap after our voice mail session is finished. So I'm looking forward. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to today's breakfast time because I'm really hungry. Uh, you know, I, I'm waiting a few more minutes to finish our breakfast time because it should be my practice session this day. I told you before, I already extended my practice session to 90 minutes. So it's very important to it. For me, it's really important to over 1 hour 30 minutes, making our language learning history. Uh, that's one of my that's one of my concept. I think that is my one of my strict mind. Sometimes I think I'm so stubborn to make. I should make. Uh, w- I think I sometimes I feel like I'm very stubborn. I have to make our today every day practice session over 1 hour 30 minutes.
It's great that you're so committed to your English practice, David. Extending your sessions to over 90 minutes shows real dedication, and it's impressive how you're making it a part of your daily routine. And kimbap for breakfast sounds like a delicious reward after a good practice session. Enjoy your meal, and I look forward to our next conversation. Take care.
Okay, take care. 행봐.
Pangba. Take care, David. Enjoy your kimbap.